Hello and welcome to Think Watercolour. Today's demonstration is a painting of Whitegate Way in Cheshire, England. It used to be a railway track many years ago, but nowadays it's a recreational path where people walk, run, cycle and ride horses through the beautiful countryside. So let me show you how I did it. I used this photo that I took last year on a walk with my family. I cropped in the picture to make the distant figures and the bridge the main focus, which also created a natural golden spiral. I sketched the image on some Saunders Waterford 300-gram rough paper, and I used artistic license to remove a couple of trees and add an extra figure just to help with the final composition. Working from the lightest lights, I first wet the sky area with clean water and then dropped in a cobalt and cerulean blue mixture, then added some yellow ochre and a watery mix of sap green and jadeite green. Then I let them blend and mix together. I used the same green in the distance through the archway, keeping it light and loose, and the same on the near side of the bridge. For the first wash on the bridge, I'm using cobalt blue with a touch of Payne's grey. All these initial washes will dry much lighter as the lightest lights. This is a very watery mix of burnt sienna, just for some of the details on the side of the slope and the bridge. And I'm using the same colour for the pathway with some yellow ochre as well. Now the initial washes have dried, I'm adding the mid-tones, and for the bridge I'm using cobalt blue and burnt sienna for a warm grey, and I'm using a flat brush. The flat brush helps me to create a little bit of texture and suggest some of the bricks on the bridge, and also I can leave some patches to suggest some highlights too. These will look much brighter once the darkest darks are added. Just added some burnt sienna to the bridge as well, just to add a little bit of variety in the colour. And I guess this is the ugly stage where a painting looks as if it's never going to work. This often happens, but just keep going and slowly the painting will come together. For the foliage, I'm using a variety of mixes of sap green and jadeite green, and for the darkest green, I've added some alizarin crimson to the jadeite green for a really dark mix. Painting all the foliage wet and wet and letting the shades blend and mix together organically. The brush I'm using is a detail brush and it holds quite a bit of water, but it's got a nice point to it that just helps when you're doing foliage. For the distant trees, I've watered down the mix a little bit so that it dries much lighter. I want the distant trees to be much lighter. It adds to the aerial perspective of the painting. Here I'm using a clean damp flat brush to lift out for some foreground saplings. For the underside of the arch I've painted neat burnt sienna and then blended with cobalt blue and Payne's grey. Always remember, shadows always have some colour in them. Adding a little detail on the brickwork of the arch is all you need. The eye will do the rest. Just a suggestion of what's there will be enough. The two main trees have some dappled sunlight hitting them, and I'm using sap green and burnt sienna for the shadow sides of the trees. And once I start to paint the darkest darks and the shadows on the track, the painting really starts to come together. Here I'm just using a rigger, just the side of the rigger, just to pick up some of the tooth of the paper to just to break up the pathway. And for the distant figures, I'm going to be using fairly light colours to help with the to create distance in the painting and help with aerial perspective. Notice that the head of the nearer figure is on the same level as the heads of the figures in the distance. This is key to making your figures appear real and in proportion. Here I'm using a rigger to add some sapling trunks and branches with some cobalt and burnt sienna. Here I decided to darken the foliage on the right side of the bridge to add contrast with the bright distant light through the bridge. Again, lifting out with a flat brush for the saplings and then adding some shadows on the saplings with some darker colours. I think doing this has added balance to the painting and helped focus on the main theme, which is the people walking through the archway. I think I'm pretty much done now. Now that the painting's finished, you can see that by adding that figure with walking the dog closer to us, the natural golden spiral is emphasized. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it informative and instructional. If you liked it, do give it a like, it helps with YouTube. And if you're not a subscriber, do subscribe and hit the notification bell for future videos. I try to post every week or so. And thanks again for watching.